Editing is known as the process of selecting, arranging, and assembling the essential components of a movie. These components include visual, sound, and special effects. The combination of these aspects helps to tell a story overall in an extraordinary manner. The film 2001: A Space Odyssey is highly noted for its incredible editing technique implemented throughout. What makes this film unique is its ability to suspend time and make certain scenes seemingly endless. The film was directed by Stanley Kubrick and edited by Ray Lovejoy. An editor is tasked with the job of creating spatial relationships between shots, temporal relationships between shots, and dictating the overall rhythm of the film. A commonly used tool in editing to help establish these important relationships is called a cut. There are several different ways of utilizing a cut. 2001: A Space Odyssey utilizes several different types of continuity type cuts. A match cut is where two shots are matched to create continuity. A match on action occurs when the cuts continue in action throughout multiple shots. And a very significant one that holds a lot of power for this plot is the match on graphic. In this type, cuts match through shapes and objects. One excellent use of this continuity technique is during the Dawn of Man scene that involves apes. In this particular scene, an ape can be seen throwing a bone, which was used as a weapon and a tool, into the air, and then cutting to the image of a satellite of a similar shape drifting in space. 2001: A Space Odyssey manipulates the viewer's experience by maintaining one of the longest average shot lengths. This film is known for artistic scenes of symmetry with perplexing and mystifying musical score. It creates moments of self-awareness. Suddenly, the audience is left to their own devices to determine the true meaning of this film. The music and its tone become the narrator instead of just an aspect of defining the mood. Through its powerful editing, the audience is able to come to conclusions that make the impending final scenes more dramatic. For example, when the characters Frank Poole and David Bowman are the only two awake on the spaceship with the company of Hal. Hal is the robot in charge of communications and keeps the two company. The two astronauts realize that there's some suspicious activity happening, and they believe it has to do with Hal. The two make a valid attempt to speak to each other without Hal hearing, but what they do not know, yet the audience can interpret, is that Hal can read their lips and fully understands that they no longer trust him. This is, of course, where Part 1 concludes, leading to increased feelings of suspense for the viewer as they must wait to find out the truth. In regards to his film and editing choices, Stanley Kubrick says that he was able to imagine each scene and how it should be played out before editing. Most editors choose to edit as they go along and dictate notes at the end, but not in this case. Kubrick insisted that it was done piece by piece to ensure perfection. Needless to say, anticipation for this film was high, and it did not help that the release date was delayed until the spring of 1968, 2 years after its initial shooting date. The film was wildly popular and even had an influence on many future films to come, one of these films being Star Wars. This film took inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and both in content similarity and editing technique. However, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, time seems suspended and eternal, whereas in Star Wars, time is sped up to cover more ground in a plot sense. This translates to the use of discontinuity instead of continuity. Star Wars played with shot length to almost give each scene its own climax. This helped the story progress quicker and maintained interest of the audience. 2001: A Space Odyssey chose to create a feeling of loneliness and isolation with its extremely long scenes. It makes the viewer feel somewhat alone within themselves, making the situation seem more dire. Editing plays a huge part in the big picture of the cohesiveness of a film. With spectacular editing, a film can go from having a good plot to an excellent work reflecting on the human condition. 2001: A Space Odyssey creates an environment focusing on each passing moment, allowing the audience to reflect on not only the events of the movie, but within themselves.